left mine at home, apparently, I think.
Good morning. I will now call to order the July 15, 2021 business meeting of the Board of Clackamas County Commissioners. Welcome back, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Schrader will be not joining us today. She is visiting family on the East Coast. Gary, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Smith. First, our staff support today, Shannon Bays, Clerk to the Board, Stephen Madcourt, County Counsel. He'll be right back. Roll call, Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here. All present. And now I will lead us in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very nice. Daniel Nybar, would you please come forward? You may have heard in the news that Clackamas County had their third wildfire last night, and it's made some people quite tense. It grew quickly, and it was extinguished quickly by Clackamas County Fire District and Canby Fire District with the aid of Oregon Department of Forestry and a bunch of hand crews and bulldozers, and I have to say the response was tremendous. There was no known loss of life, no property damage except for possibly some landscaping and trees, but no homes or buildings were destroyed as far as I know. I had friends in the area, so I was on the phone calling them and talking with them to make sure and giving them reports when I could. And I texted the governor and said, so-and-so lives here and so-and-so lives there, and she knew who those people were. She called me right back and said, look, I'm here with the fire marshal, the state fire marshal. We're aware of the problem. I am prepared to bring in what's necessary to extinguish a fire. I will reach out to the Canby fire chief to make sure, And then a little bit later, the state fire marshal called me saying the fire was contained, but Clackamas County efforts and our staff were also tremendous. It was only a 10-acre fire, and they just doused it right away, and I've never really been so happy with a situation like this. Daniel, would you like to fill in the blanks, please?
Sure, happy to tell you. I still have information coming in, but I'll tell you everything I know at this point. It was a brush fire at 99E in South Road. Initial call came in at about 3:52. It was first reported as a 2-foot by 2-foot fire, but quickly escalated, and that's when obviously much more fire assets came in. Disaster management started monitoring it at about 4:15. At about 4:30, a level 3 evacuation of a quarter mile around 2300 South End Road. The evacuees were directed to the fairgrounds. Red Cross was there to help for livestock. The sheriff's posse and one of the organization. Oh, and the fairgrounds, of course, were there to help that. As part of that notification, we asked Dog Services to help. They had, I think in the end, they had about 40 or 50 trailers ready to respond. However, and I'm happy to say this, all of the horses that had to go, their owners were prepped and ready, transported them on their own, had their own supplies. So it was phenomenal that they were ready. So we didn't have to use all the trailers we had ready, but they were there and ready. In the end, we'd heard as many as 50 horses. Turned out to be 15 signed in. So not 15. Sure what the difference was somewhere, whether some people just didn't sign in or if just a lot of horses go by and it looks like a lot. There were 4 individuals from 3 families that ended up going, and Red Cross provided water and information for those individuals as they needed it. 99E and South End Road were closed. And as I said, disaster management notified DTD and Dog Services, as well as PGA, who sent a PIO, social services for awareness just in case this escalated and we needed to do any further work, assistance for folks, CCSO, technology services for GIS, because we had the fire map back up, and we got that up quickly, and then coordinating with Canby and Clackamas Fire, because they both responded in different parts of the incident. We did a partial activation of the EOC, locating at CCOM. That way we could best coordinate with Clackamas Fire and CCSO. We sent out a level 2 notice for a small area to the northwest for the level 3 at about 6:45, and at about 6:30 PGE shut off power to about 320 customers. We were able to lift the level 2 at 7:30 and the level 3 at 8:15, and power was restored at 8:25. A Facebook update with the PIO and Clackamas Fire Chief happened at 9:15. We had assets from multiple agencies within Clackamas County, and even multiple agencies backfilled the stations as those left. And we had one helicopter as well, for those that saw the video, that was helping. This was a very tough terrain for the firefighters to get up that hill, and the helicopter proved critical in being able to douse and suppress in some of those areas that didn't get through. Just wanted to note a couple of things kind of that we did here. So I've talked previously about that alert team concept to get notifications out smoother. We implemented that. It was a person from disaster management, the PIO, and then GIS were able to smoothly coordinate to get the map updated on time. PIO could look at the language of the text, immediately get that on social services, and we were co-located with CCOM to get out. So I was very happy with the way that went out. I still think there's some ways we can smooth that out a little bit, but very happy with what it did. And the PIO coordination with the Sheriff's Office and Clack Fire was, I think phenomenal, and they were able to co-locate and get information back and forth and make sure that they were all speaking with one voice. And I just got an update from Clack Fire. They say it's going to be at least another 24 hours for mop-up. So they're still out there working it, monitoring it, but they are just mopping it up at this point.
Well, that's an excellent report, Daniel. Also, there were a situation, I believe there were 4 youths in a home, and they could see flames, and they were quickly evacuated, and the county saw shelter for them, and immediately right away. I'm very happy the fairgrounds were able to offer their assistance. They've been great help in all these disasters, as well as COVID relief. And kudos need to go to the fair as well. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Question I have is that what's the distinction between a brush fire and what point does it get elevated to be called a wildfire? I'm just trying to understand your own nomenclature. Is there?
That is a really good question. I maybe size, but I can clarify with Clackamas Fire. It may just also be what they use. I did ask at one point what they were naming the fire, and they said this one's just too small to name. So I think it may be just what's in the incident commander's head at the time.
Okay. The other question I had, you mentioned PIO several times, and then at the latter part, you inferred that is it a PIO team per se, and not. I was going to ask you which PIO, for the sheriffs or for fire or our PIO. You know, is it a PIO team? And you mentioned coordination and getting the right message, which I appreciate. So.
Sure. It was our PIO that was at CCOM with us. Sheriff's Office also sent their PIO, so they were able to talk directly. And the Clackamas Fire PIO was on scene. And so that worked well because CCSO and our PIO were able to talk directly to the PIO on scene and get messages, as well as get some real-time information. So I was referring to kind of our PIO, but the others were there and coordinating with us.
And if we did already say it, for those who are listening, that acronym stands for Public Information Officer, right?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Daniel, for excellent report. Do we know what caused the fire?
No, they're still under investigation. They're really focusing on mop-up right
Okay.
now before I think they get into the cause.
And do we know how many firefighters were engaged?
I do not. I do have the list of everything that was there, and it's a pretty extensive list, but I can find out an approximate number for you.
That was a very dramatic afternoon.
Yeah, it
A lot
was.
happened.
Yes.
And it seemed like a lot of coordination, especially with shutting off power and all of that, seems like we've learned some things about wildfires to work quickly, swiftly. Thank you.
The response was tremendous on all levels. I was just amazed, totally amazed, and so heartened. Thank you very much, Daniel, for your efforts on this. We will now continue. We are holding this meeting in person and virtually. If you've joined us on the Zoom app for this meeting and you are interested in providing public comment, we will prompt you regarding how to do that when the time is right. Today we have 2 public hearings. As always, the public is welcome to sign up to testify. Registration will close at 5 minutes past 10. Public comment on individual public hearings will be taken at the time of each hearing, and general public testimony will be taken afterwards. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. With that in mind, I would like to remind all participants, including staff, all elected officials, and members of the public, that Robert's Rules of Order will be enforced in this business meeting. Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Next is Housing Authority business. Shannon, will you please bring into the Zoom room Ann Leenstra, who is also a Housing Authority Commissioner, and Chair Smith, if you would announce that you will be switching hats as the board.
I will now announce the board will recess as a Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Housing Authority Board for the consent agenda.
Next up is the Housing Authority consent agenda. Shannon, would you please read the consent agenda by title only?
Approval of Resolution Number 1956, authorizing the Housing Authority's submittal of a Section 18 demolition and disposition application for Hillside Park Public Housing Complex. Estimated cost of $600,000 through HUD Section 18. No county general funds are involved. Requesting approval to execute an intergovernmental agreement between Health, Housing, and Human Services Department and the Housing Authority of Clackamas County to fund the cost of administering the Supportive Housing Services Program, funding through Metro Measure 26-210 Supportive Housing Services Fund. Approval of Amendment Number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement between the Housing Authority of Clackamas County and Social Services for a case manager for Housing Our Families program. Adds $36,690 for a total contract value of $110,070 over a period of 1 year and 6 months, funded through Housing Authority of Clackamas County local project funds. No county general funds are involved.
Does any commissioner wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? I'll entertain a motion.
I move for approval of the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has made the motion, and Commissioner Fisher has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Shannon, please call the poll.
Commissioner Leenstra?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Commissioner Chavez?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. I will now announce the board will adjourn as a Housing Authority Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners for the next few items. Gary, what's next?
Thank you, Chair Smith. Next are two public hearings. The first is second reading of ordinance number 03-2021, amending Appendix B, fines of the Clackamas County Code and declaring an emergency. Stephen Madcourt, County Counsel, will present.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Commissioners. What we have before you this morning is the second reading of ordinance number 03-2021, which is an amendment to Appendix B of the County Code, is where fees and fines are housed. And what this one does, it increases from $40 to $80 the fine for illegal parking. This is directed towards our response to the crowds at Barton and Carver Park. And this will allow the Sheriff's Office to increase the fines for illegal parking there. Like I said, it's currently $40. This is the second reading of the code ordinance amendment. First one was on July 1st. And that's the ordinance change in its entirety. Any questions by the board?
Any questions for Stephen Madcourt on this? I will now open the public hearing for testimony from anybody in the room regarding this particular issue. Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. Shannon, do we have anybody on Zoom?
Not registered for this item.
Okay, thank you. I will now close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion. I move we read the ordinance by title only.
I move, well,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I move we read the ordinance by title only.
I move we read the ordinance by title only.
Seconded.
Commissioner Fisher has moved the motion, and Commissioner Scholl has seconded. Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the poll.
Commissioner Chavez?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Motion passes 5-0.
4-0.
4-0. I wrote down 4, I said 5, pardon me. Shannon, what else?
You'll read the ordinance by title, please.
03-2021, an ordinance amending Appendix B, fines of the Clackamas County Code and declaring an emergency.
Do I have a motion to approve?
I move we approve ordinance number 03-2021, amending Appendix B, fines of the Clackamas County Code and declaring an emergency.
Seconded.
Commissioner Fisher has moved and Commissioner Savas has seconded the motion. Any further discussion on this item? Shannon, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Gary, what's next?
Thank you, Chair Smith. The second public hearing is second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 8.03 of the Clackamas County Code, secondhand dealers. Stephen Madcord County Council will also present.
Thank you again, Gary. This is a second reading of an item that the board also heard on July 1st, and this is a code amendment, 803. That's our secondhand dealers chapter of the code itself. You'll recall a couple weeks ago, we had the sheriff's office here, and they were talking about how to better track the stolen goods that might get pawned through pawn shops and things along those lines. They had three proposals. One is to allow for collection of fines and fees. One was to remove some references to firearms, which is preempted by state law, so our code would be more aligned with state law. The third was to allow for photographs. There was some commentary about photographs at that point, and the sheriff's office has decided to revisit that item, and so they pulled the photograph requirement at this time. They're going to go back and reevaluate it to see if there's a better way to capture their objectives while minimizing the efforts of secondhand dealers and things along those lines. But we're still moving forward at the sheriff's office direction with the two code changes to allow for collections of fines and fees and to also remove the firearms reference. So, like I said, we pulled back on the photograph aspect, so there's not going to be any commentary or controversy with that. It might be revisited later on, that item. But this would be a second reading of 04-2021 amendment to Chapter 803. And I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, so I attended that meeting, I asked questions, and I still struggle to understand why one additional photo was such a large deal. And I say that as a victim of property crimes, right? There's nothing, sometimes you lose things that maybe don't really matter, and sometimes you lose things that are awfully personal. And so,
I'm sorry.
So my concern is that, is just understanding what the hiccup was with whatever we were going to do in that area besides the additional photo. I think having some kind of a physical record of what was sold by picture would help, people recover their items or know where they went. And I'm speaking to the people, again, that have been, suffered something they lost personally. It's probably irreplaceable. And I think jewelry and those kinds of things fall in those categories, amongst other things as well.
Commissioner Savas, like I said, I believe that's everyone's intention to have this item revisited, this issue revisited. And I believe the sheriff's office concern was that they wanted to make sure that it was actually directed towards the types of property that would be stolen as opposed to pawn. There's a kind of a difference between those, stuff that's actually just sold to the pawn shop as opposed to put out there on a loan type of thing. There's also issues about electronics. Do you want serial numbers? Do you just want the face of the Blu-ray player? Like, what exactly are we trying to capture in that regard? So I think the intention is to come back with something a bit more specific about what types of items we actually want photographed to make sure that the platform that these are going to be uploaded to is going to be compatible with the technology that these stores are using as well. So I think the sheriff's office recognizes your concerns and plans to address it in a manner that's tailored specifically towards the type of crime they're trying to address.
Okay, just one last comment, Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
And that is that I don't know what the rate of crime is, over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years, but it definitely seems recently that there's been a spike in the last, year or two or more. So I do know people are losing, or are victims, more people are more victims of property crime. At the same time, there's been, more calls into the sheriff's office than they can handle, so there's limited ability for the sheriff's office to actually search or investigate these things. So those calls go basically unresponded to in ways. I mean, I'm blaming the sheriff's department, but because of that uptick, I'm just inclined to make sure that if there's consensus among my colleagues to bring that element back for a revisit, I think I would advocate for that. But just want to put that out there, that if crime was flat or going down, it wouldn't be a bigger deal, but it's going this way.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Fisher?
So I'm also concerned about removing the original photographing language, and I'm just curious if we need to do more work on this, why don't we do that and then bring it back instead of passing something now and then having to revisit?
Because we're halfway there with this one, this code change right now.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, the work is done.
I'm also concerned about the photographing, but your advice is that it's just not, what we had originally discussed is not adequate for this ordinance?
I think the sheriff's office is here to better address the details
Oh,
of
good.
it.
Thank you.
Please state your name and position.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Jed Wilson. I'm a detective sergeant with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. I think the goal of this, right now, when secondhand dealers purchase an item from a citizen, they're required to enter certain data into an online program that we then have access to on our end for an investigative tool. Items with serial numbers are required to be, the serial numbers are required to be documented, which is then easy for us to check. Items such as jewelry, things that don't have serial numbers, are the items that originally we were looking to capture in those photographs that are one-of-a-kind items that can't be replaced, and the photographs would then help us with that investigative tool. Unfortunately, when I was given this task to look into this, it's kind of one of those deals where you don't know what you don't know. And starting this process, and especially since the last public hearing that I attended, I've been in communication with more secondhand dealers. It appears to be a considerable lift for those dealers to photograph every single item that comes through their store, and they're also clearly citizens of our county that I'm trying to serve. And so, having thought about this a little bit more, I think the goal for me is to capture primarily jewelry and those non-serialized items that we can then investigate. And so, the way it's currently written and presented to you, it would be every single item, which is, to me, is probably unnecessary and might be a little too much of a lift for those dealers.
How many dealers or businesses does this affect in Clackamas County?
I think the number is about 12.
12, okay. Any other questions for the detective?
So I'm just wondering if we can amend right now and fix it and be done, and just say it's jewelry and not every item, possibly.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I'm willing to give staff the time to clean that up and bring it back. I'd be willing to do that, just to get that clarity. I don't want it to be a burden, but the question I had was, my recollection of the conversation we had at the first reading is that anyone who comes in gets their photograph of an ID, right?
Yeah, yes, it's either a photograph of them or a photograph of their driver's license or a scan of their driver's license.
So if they're doing that for, my point was then and still is today, if they're taking that step to identify each person, then each item wouldn't be that much more of a lift for one additional. Obviously, you can't photocopy a ring, I would say very well, but a picture. But again, and just in the interest, again, if crime was not going up and personal property crimes weren't going up, I wouldn't be that adamant about it.
I completely agree with you. In fact, Monday, one of the things that I'm doing is going to one of our local dealers to go through their process of, because I agree with you, in my opinion, it's not that, for one item, depending on how many items they're bringing in, it could be, but I'm going to go through the process of purchasing an item from a citizen with them to see what their process is, to see how much of a lift it actually is. I'm not giving up on this by any means, and I think that it's very important, and I wholeheartedly agree with both of you. I just think that there may be a way to get what we're trying to capture and sort of limit some of the things that maybe aren't really necessary, that it would just sort of be a waste of time, in my opinion.
Okay, with that in mind, I intend to proceed with this ordinance as written, with in mind that we can revisit it when you have done your investigation and more due diligence on it. I think this board would be more than happy to do that. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
I will now open a public hearing on this issue, and we have a gentleman, Hal Hallmark. Hallmark, please come forward. State your name, your area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. My name is Hal Hallmark. I live in Milwaukee, Oregon. I'm a secondhand dealer. I own a store called Stuff, and I really concur with everything Detective Sergeant Wilson was just talking about. Jewelry is the problem. Items that are serialized, a Canon camera or a Pioneer receiver, they all look exactly the same. There's only one thing that makes them different, and that's the serial number, and that's recorded already. Things like jewelry, and I've talked with law enforcement over the years, it's a struggle for them because a description of a diamond ring means nothing, but a picture would mean everything. We do take pictures of some items now in our store. It takes between 1 and 3 minutes per item. It does represent a burden, but a reasonable burden when it comes to jewelry, because it seems to me that jewelry is one of those things that has to be photographed if we're going to protect victims of crimes surrounding jewelry. That's all.
Well, thank you coming forward. Commissioner Savas.
Just one question. I don't know if people are really aware of this, but I know that some secondhand dealers, I think, could be wrong, but they do take some items like, let's say, a gold ring, and that could be melted down for
Yes, sir.
for the value, and they don't ever recover that. It's not like it's really sold. It's actually converted or melted down and is sold as the raw product. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, and we do that as well.
Yeah. So that's a concern. Or I think there should be some final record before the item is melted down.
I agree with you 100%.
Okay, well, good comments. I think we can address that when we revisit this item. Shannon, do we have anybody on Zoom? Thank you for coming forward, Mr. Hallmark.
Thank you very much.
Shannon, do we?
We have one registered participant, Josh Hamblin. Please unmute yourself, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Hi there, Josh Hamblin. I'm from Oregon City. I own a video game store in the Oak Grove area called SideQuest Games. We specialize primarily in vintage games, but we do as well work with some current items. I agree as well that the attempt to recover jewelry and those types of things is a great way to go. My perspective is that my store is getting kind of lumped in with the pawn stores, and we don't deal with any jewelry or things of that nature. We do deal with video game consoles, some of which have serial numbers, which we already record and hold for the 30 days. My problem with the proposal is that trying to capture the thousands of items we take in with no not identifying marks is a huge burden. Our average trade-in for video games is just over 50 items, with trade-ins in the hundreds being very common, and some trade-ins in the thousands about every other month or so. So taking individual pictures of those items it's just too much time. The other problem we're having with leads in particular is not being able to log in from more than one register or more than one computer at a time. So it's a huge delay in processing trade-ins. My proposal would be for the video game industry to perhaps take photos of a group of games, 10 or 20, 30 at a time, as long as the titles could be read. Once again, these are items that have no distinguishing marks on them. They're all identical, or quite frankly, maybe not take pictures of them, but focus more on the items with serial numbers or identifying marks. That's pretty much the gist of it for me. I have other issues that aren't probably for this meeting, but there could be a lot of improvement with leads. It's really not set up at all for a video game store. And of course, the burden of holding things for 30 days when it comes to this volume is great. So those are my remarks.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I will now close the, nobody else, correct?
Thank
I
you,
will now
Betty.
close the public hearing on this, and we will open it up for more discussion. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, the last caller, triggered another thought of concern. I think it's valid. What if the items are like, videos or CDs and they're worth $5 or $10 or $20, it may not really be worth it. So maybe that could be written into an amendment. Gentleman's got his hand up in the back. I'd love to hear his response. But I just wondered if there could be a clarification so we can craft this so it's less of a burden and it's a benefit to our constituents.
This was another reason for.
Please state your name
I'm
and
sorry,
position.
Jed Wilson again with Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, Detective Sergeant with the Sheriff's Office. This was another reason for the request to delay that is I think that there are some other items that we can look at, specifically items, digital media, video games, DVDs, the way that those are listed in the language. I think that there's some archaic language in there that can be freshened up or removed, and I think doing that all at the same time, getting in what we want photographs in and refreshing that language would be appropriate. And again, it was just sort of too late on my part to change it before we got to that first meeting, but I think that's also my goal is to address those kinds of items.
Okay, I think what we're going to do today, thank you for coming forward. It appears to me several things happened. We need more review and study on this issue. And quite possibly, many of the dealers who are engaged in this business where the burden is put on, this is a regulation being put on businesses, are just now learning that we're doing this, and maybe enough notification wasn't given. And that's always our challenge, is to communicate. And communications are always difficult. So I'm going to propose, Commissioners, we can either do one of two things today. We can pass this as is or come back, or we can propose a third reading at a future date. And until then, we can make more amendments to this ordinance and address all the issues that have been brought up today. We can bring in Detective Sergeant from the CCO's office and our county council to work out the bugs in this language. Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, Chair Smith, I really support your idea to postpone this for a third reading so we can just get it all done with the input that we receive. Good suggestion. Oh, sorry.
Do I need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we postpone this for a third reading.
Second.
A motion has been made by Commissioner Fisher. We postponed this ordinance for a third reading. It's been seconded by Commissioner Savas. Any further discussion?
Chair,
Yes.
do we have a date for the third reading?
How much time do we need? A month?
How about we propose July 29th? It'll be the requisite 13 days, and if we're not ready at that point, we can just reschedule it at that time as well. It's good?
Okay. As long as if staff needs more time, sheriff staff needs more time, we can make that accommodation.
Well, we're going to do, what we're going to do is we're going to do the requisite 13 days prescribed by law. If we're not ready, we'll postpone it again.
Exactly.
Okay? That will work. Okay. Thank you very much. Seeing no further comment, Shannon, please call the poll.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, everybody, for your contribution on this. Okay, Gary, what's up next?
Next is the consent agenda. And Shannon, would you please read the consent agenda by title only?
Sorry. Approval of interagency subrecipient agreement with Friends of the Estacada Community Center to provide social services for Clackamas County residents. Maximum agreement of $156,647, funded through social services agreements with Oregon Department of Human Services and transportation agreements with TriMet and Ride Connection, Inc. No county general funds are involved. Approval of intergovernmental agreement number 159475, amendment number 3 with the State of Oregon Department of Human Services, Aging and People with Disabilities Division for the provisio of the Oregon Money Management Program in Clackamas County. $650,832.49, funded through state general funds designated for the Oregon Money Management Program. No county general funds are involved. Approval of intergovernmental subrecipient agreement with City of Wilsonville, Wilsonville Community Center to provide social services for Clackamas County residents. Maximum agreement of $118,410 funded through the Oregon Department of Human Services Older American Act. No county general funds are involved. Approval of intergovernmental subrecipient agreement with Legal Aid Services of Oregon to provide housing, rights, and referral and legal assistance for Clackamas County residents. Maximum agreement of $81,197 funded through Community Development Block Grant and Older American Act. No county general funds involved. Approval of intergovernmental subrecipient agreement with City of Gladstone, Gladstone Senior Center to provide social services for Clackamas County residents. Maximum agreement of $56,058 funded through Older American Act and Ride Connection pass-through funds. No county general funds are involved. Approval of intergovernmental subrecipient agreement with Senior Citizen Council of Clackamas County to provide social services for residents of Clackamas County. Maximum agreement of $160,784 funded through Older American Act and general funds. Requesting approval to execute an intergovernmental agreement between Health and Housing and Human Services Department and the Housing Authority of Clackamas County to fund the cost of administering the Supportive Housing Services Program, funding through Metro Measure 26-210 Supportive Housing Services Fund. Approval of the intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon, acting by and through its Oregon Health Authority for operation as the local public health authority for Clackamas County. Maximum contract of $2,799,273 funded through the State of Oregon. No county general funds are involved. Approval for an intergovernmental agreement with Sandy Fire District for medical direction. Maximum contract of $7,350 funded through the Emergency Medical Services Coordination. No county general funds are involved. Approval of a local subrecipient grant agreement number 2 with Metropolitan Family Services to continue to provide kindergarten readiness partnership and innovation services. Amendment adds $35,423 for a maximum value of $168,718, and it is funded through the Oregon Department of Education and Oregon State University's Success Act funds. No county general funds are involved. Approval of a subrecipient grant amendment number 3 with Oregon City Together for youth marijuana and substance abuse prevention efforts in Clackamas County. Amendment adds $30,000 for a maximum of $120,000, extending it through June 30th, 2022, and is funded through marijuana tax revenue. No county general funds are involved. Approval of a subrecipient grant amendment number 3 with the Oregon Impact for Youth Marijuana and Substance Prevention Efforts in Clackamas County. Amendment adds $30,000 for a maximum of $120,000, extending it through June 30th, 2022, and is funded through marijuana tax revenue. No county general funds are involved. Approval of a cooperation agreement between Clackamas County and Next Step Strategies Incorporated for acquisition of property. Clackamas County will cover $240,000 through community development block grants, and Next Steps will cover $170,000 for a total purchase price of $410,000. No county general funds are involved. Approval of amendment number 3 to intergovernmental agreement number 166036 with the State of Oregon, acting by and through its Oregon Health Authority for the operation and financing of community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery and prevention services, and problem gambling programs. Amendment adds $340,347 for a maximum of $9,086,559.18, funded through Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Approval of an amendment number 2 with Do Good Multnomah to extend Veterans Village services, $315,009, funded through county general funds. A board order adopting the vacation of a portion of Johnson Road, County Road number 1374, application and processing fee received into road fund. Approval of a resolution declaring the public necessity and purpose for acquisition of rights-of-way, easements, and fee property for the Canby Ferry ITS project, with authorizing good faith negotiations and condemnation actions. Right-of-way budget for the project is estimated to be $63,000. Project total $889,024. County Road Fund and Federal Ferry Boat discretionary funds. Approval of Amendment Number 3 of the MOU between Business and Community Services and Hoodland Women's Club to extend time to transfer properties to a local park district upon its formation. This extension will not have a financial impact. No county general funds are involved.
Is that it? Wow. Any further discussion?
Have to clap for Shannon for her excellent reading skills.
Does any commissioner wish to remove any item? I'll entertain a motion.
I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Scholl and seconded by Commissioner Savas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Shannon, please call the poll.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. I will now announce the board will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Board of Water Environment Services for the next consent agenda. Gary.
Next is a Water Environment Services consent agenda. Shannon, would you please read the consent agenda by title only?
Approval to terminating an agreement with Park Place Development, Inc., and Water Environment Services.
Does any commissioner wish to remove this item? I will entertain a motion.
I move for approval of the Water Environmental Services consent agenda.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Savas and seconded by Commissioner Fisher. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Shannon, please call the poll.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0. I will now announce the board will adjourn as a Water Environment Services Board and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. Up next is public communication. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to the items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and should be nonpartisan in nature, as the BCC is a nonpartisan governing body under Oregon revised statutes and county code. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. As a reminder, you can email submissions for public comment at bcc@clackamas.us, and these will be accepted as part of the public record. However, we will not read them due to time constraints. I will now open the meeting for public testimony, and I will take in-person testimony first. And Shannon, do we have some people on Zoom?
We do.
Good, okay. I have one card. Les Poole, please come forward, state your name, area of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Les Poole. I live in Gladstone. Good response yesterday by emergency services, and it's one of those things where we learn it the hard way. We get reminded that we need to be ready, and if anything, the situation that we've been through has taught us a lot. So I was very pleased by how they got after it, and it looks like here in Oregon, even though we're in a lot of trouble, the response is becoming less bulky and cumbersome and administrative and more about protecting our precious lands. There will be Saturday at 1 o'clock an event in Estacada honoring first responders, and I invite everyone to come. And I want to briefly discuss something that occurred last week. Last week during public communications, several comments were made, and there were responses from Commissioner Fisher about campaign funding. And while Commissioner Fisher explained to us how campaign funding works and that she is indeed a politician and she needs consulting from time to time and she's a candidate, those are all good, true things. But they didn't address the question. And the question that I've asked, and it is county business, is what does spending campaign finance money on going after Mark Scholl, an incoming commissioner, at the start of his 4-year term, what does that have to do with the legitimate campaign activities you described last week? My other question that's been unanswered is very simply, how much did you pay the consultants, Wheelhouse Northwest, to put together your paid response to Mr. Scholl's statement? Mr. Scholl made a statement on Monday the 11th in response to Chris Waller's email, right? Yeah, he did. He put out a statement, and within an hour and a half, you forwarded it to your consultants. And the next morning during a policy session, Commissioner Fisher, you put out that statement with your name on it. I don't really care whether that's legal, ethical, or any other bar that we need to prove here. I consider that to be very poor judgment. I would like an answer to the question. I think the public deserves one. And please give us a detailed, accurate answer to that question before the meeting is over. Thank you.
I'm tried as chair very hard since I accepted these duties in January to be as nonpartisan and apolitical in this business meeting as possible, and I've said that every single day that I've been here. Campaign politics is outside the purview of this board meeting. I've been attacked, and many commissioners here have been attacked because of either one side or the other thinks we've done something wrong. But I don't know that we're going to answer that in this particular forum. I think that other forums are available for that. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Shannon, is there anybody else?
Yes. I have 3 people online.
Go
to
ahead,
speak.
please.
Chris Waller, you are up. Please state your name and your residence. You have 3 minutes.
Chris Waller, Jennings Lodge. On July 9th, Mark Scholl wrote this: "Our freedoms and our wallets are being slowly eroded by people seeking equal outcomes. They are not concerned about equal opportunity. They want everyone, regardless of their work ethic, to get the same outcomes. And in pursuit of that ideology, they are slowly eroding our freedoms. America never supported the notion that everyone is entitled to the same outcomes and the same success. It is terrifying that this county is represented by a commissioner that thinks that an immigrant family where both parents are toiling in the fields for pennies, or a young Black man working long hours at a fast food restaurant, or an older disabled woman on Social Security do not deserve health care, housing, or a living wage because they are not working hard enough. Scholl has his big fat government pension paid for by taxpayers and his big fat $100,000 plus salary paid for by taxpayers, and his $1.3 million, 4,000 square foot plus house on 20 acres in Sandy, part of his first divorce settlement. Yet he dares to imply that those in our county who are struggling, who are dying in the heat in their sweltering apartments, who are rising before dawn to do the work no one else will do for pittances no one else would accept, are where they are because of their own shortcomings. Tonight in Clackamas County, 11,000 children may go to bed hungry. 12.6% of our kids are food insecure. I guess those kids didn't work hard enough. Neither did the over 5,000 adults 65 and older who are living in poverty in our county. The 2016 Clackamas County Community Needs Assessment told the real truth. They said, the conditions of poverty are the absence of what most of us take for granted: safe housing, a livable wage, reliable transportation, educational opportunities, access to doctors, and healthy food. Take any one of these away and it's a long way back to stability. Poverty is a web of impossible choices. It means choosing between feeding yourself or feeding your child, between paying for rent or paying for medicine, between letting your oldest children go to school or keeping them home to look after younger kids while you work. These are terrible choices that no one should have to make, and yet many in our communities are facing these painful dilemmas right now. It is a favorite trope of the right wing that they got where they are because of their superior work ethic, and those who are struggling are lazy, unmotivated, and undeserving, rather than facing these almost insurmountable barriers. This is cruel, this is false, and this is absolutely at odds with creating a county where everyone can thrive. Thank you.
Well, there we go again. I don't know that any single commissioner or elected official in any land is responsible for all poverty and starving children of the world, and I believe the last caller has misrepresented very much what we do up here. Commissioner Scholl, do you have a comment?
Chair Smith, I have never advocated that the county or the government be insensitive to those people in our society who struggle. I think my comment that she refers to has to do with the fact that America was built on hard work, and that everyone, no matter what their background, their economic condition is, everybody in them has the ability to work hard and find success in America, in Oregon, and in Clackamas County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's up next, Shannon?
Bill Weir, you're up next. Please unmute, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Bill Weir, Damascus. At the last meeting, Chair Smith referenced the Economic Recovery Resolution, reminding testifiers to read it. She said if one would have read it, that many questions would have been answered. She expresses exasperation by the same questions that are asked over and over. I went through the resolution on the homepage of the BCC website. Although it does address certain areas, it doesn't answer questions that have been repeatedly come up by citizens. It falls short of the protection of the citizens, both private and commercial. It does acknowledge taking the vaccine as a choice, but what is missing are the commissioner's positions on passport bans, door-to-door vaccine enforcement, or snitch lines. Remember last November when Kate Brown encouraged reporting neighbors who had too many cars in the driveway on Thanksgiving? Another concern I have is school children being, quote, othered by having to wear a mask and playing separate from classmates. What will be the devastating long-term effect? I urge you to state your position that no child will be arbitrarily discriminated against or denied access to in-person public education under the guise of COVID mandates. Also, another part of the resolution is, excuse me, is about the county being an attractive and competitive place for businesses to thrive. How can this be done without the strong denunciation of violence, looting, and destruction of private property and commercial businesses as part of the equation? Do any of you follow national media to get an idea of what the rest of the country thinks of the Portland metro area? Did any of you notice the riot a few weeks ago in Oregon City? I would urge you to address these items and act on them. And for another, a more complete resolution. Although the governor has loosened the leash somewhat, she has not given up her emergency powers. Another item is the structure of citizen comments. The chair has set up the pattern of challenging or clarifying a citizen testimony by speaking either by her, another commissioner, or a county commissioner, administrator, or attorney. This, at times, the result is a non sequitur or misinterpreting what the testifier said. I think it's only fair that if this is done by you, that you allow the citizen 1 minute to respond to you. This would allow the citizens to show that you're listening rather than going through the motions of listening. Thank you.
Up next.
Up next is Christine Kennedy. Christine, please unmute. You have, state your name and residence. You have 3 minutes. Christine, can you unmute?
Okay. How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. Thank you for the time to speak this morning. My name is Christine Kennedy. I'm a resident of Clackamas County, Lake Oswego, and I've been a resident for 6 years. I have to say that misinformation about COVID and a lot of the statements that are shared at these meetings is a serious health and public health threat. Somehow, people have gotten this checkbox mentality that if we just had 65% of our Clackamas County people get vaccinated, that then everybody could take their masks off and there was no more problem. What I would like to say is there's huge variation in risk within our own county by zip codes. And this information is available. It's an interactive map, and this is as of July 15th. So I just want to share some information. 84.2% of the people in Lake Oswego, 97034, have been vaccinated. Malala, 97038, 40.2%. That's very concerning. Sandy, 49%. That's zip code 97055. Also not good. Half of the people in Sandy are not vaccinated. And of greater concern is Colton, with only 33.5% people vaccinated. So somehow we are just totally missing the point. And the whole idea of creating a sanctuary state or sanctuary county with Clackamas County is one of the most ridiculous things I have ever heard. This is science. 99% of the people who are dying from COVID are not vaccinated. The Delta variant, we are now around 40 cases as compared to 14. So people, this is not over. Please get vaccinated. And I'd love to hear the stories from our county chair in terms of her vaccination and how she would like to see vaccinations improve in Malala. So thank you for your time this afternoon, this morning. Good luck with all your work. Thank you.
My answer to that, as it's been from day one, vaccinations is a choice for all. Thank you. Who's up next, Shannon?
That is the end of my list, Chair.
Thank you very much. Gary? I will now close the public hearing on public comment, and you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Next is County Administrator update, and I will do this one. First, Commissioners, I signed a contract on your behalf under the Emergency Declaration 2020-14, COVID-19, and that is on July 12th, 2021. I signed a contract for disaster management. It is a memorandum of agreement, facility use agreement between Clackamas County and Theopolis Church in Milwaukee to provide COVID-19 indoor vaccination clinics. There's no monetary value other than the county will pay for any expenses to ensure facilities are returned to preconditioned use. If so, CARES Act funding will be used. No county general funds will be used. I signed this on July 12th. I'm seeking your ratification of this contract.
I move to ratify.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved to ratify. Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Shannon, please call the poll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Commissioners. A few good news items I'd like to share. Our Department of Transportation staff, Transportation Maintenance Specialist Dylan Hageman, received a great congratulations from Debbie of Milwaukee, who wanted to thank him and our team for the work they did to remove broken branches and brushwork on her property. Debbie wrote, "I wanted to tell you how very courteous and professional Dylan was to me. Please tell him again, thank you. I truly appreciate what he and his crew did, but especially his courtesy and kindness. It will not be forgotten anytime soon. You have exceptional people representing Clackamas County." So thank you, Debbie, for your note, and thank you, Dylan, for your outstanding work and demonstrating our county's core values, professionalism and service, two of the 6 core values. Next, SPIRIT, 6, thank you. Next, Social Services Division, Health, Housing, and Human Services launched Clackamas Connects, a shuttle service which will provide local residents enhanced transportation in Oregon City and to the Clackamas industrial area. Commissioner Savas spoke at the kickoff event. Commissioner Scholl was there as well as Oregon City Mayor Smith and other representatives. So this shuttle service will provide a vital connection to our rural communities and areas that are hard to reach by transit. So thank you to our staff that helped make this happen and our other partners in the area. Finally, as already been discussed, I do want to thank our staff for the brush fire response in Canby yesterday. Fantastic work with our staff from the Sheriff's Office, of course, Disaster Management, our Emergency Operations Center, our Dog Services, Public and Government Affairs. They all came together and in a moment's notice provided critical support to our community. So bravo to our staff for their excellent work. That's my update. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Gary. We will now move on to Commissioner Communication. Commissioner Fisher, you're up first.
Thank you, Chair Smith. So it's wonderful to be back with all of my colleagues. I must say, Martha and I were racing through all of the workshops and presentations back in Washington, D.C. I was able to present during the Healthy Counties presentation on our program called Go Teams. It was a wonderful panel of experts, and what we have done here in Clackamas County is innovative, it's interesting, and the whole idea of normalizing the idea of mental health and that we all have times of challenge that we need extra support is really positive and good. So last night, after I got home and I was interested in what your day was like, commissioners, on Tuesday, I put up my iPad, put on my earbuds, set out on my deck because it was kind of nice last evening, and I listened to the policy sessions and especially to Commissioner Scholl, I just have to say, the first caller, saying that you don't have I don't know exactly how to summarize that, but that you're not concerned about people that are struggling out there. Really evident in your comments, in your questions, in your concerns when we're talking about mental health and addiction, that all along, as your time as a commissioner, you have been an advocate for those services, and also in your support of the local implementation plan for homeless services, for joining the rest of the commission with all of us stating that we are moving forward with implementing our plan, that these most vulnerable people are so important to us. Throughout your time with this body, we have been in alignment on the importance of these services. So I take a little bit of offense to that, and I'm calling that out in your defense, because we are here to care about the people that are at the other side of every decision that we make, and this board prioritizes that, and our actions speak very loudly as to what our values and priorities are. So I wanted to say that. I do want to let folks know that I got a lot of information back in DC, especially about the intentions of the American Recovery Plan, a lot of information about how rent assistance can be used beyond what I had originally thought it could be used for, and also just priorities of what's happening around the country that is so similar to where we are here in Clackamas County. So I want to bring back, I'm going to send a little email to Gary Schmidt to ask that we look at how we are moving forward with our housing and homelessness and have a discussion for our board. I think that will be very constructive. Had some interesting conversations with health industry about wanting to partner with us, want to talk about that with our board when we have more time to kind of dig into the details. And I just want to say I appreciate my colleagues. I appreciate our commitment. I appreciate your conversation yesterday on addiction, mental health, the Housing Services 101. We are well poised, well educated, and well positioned to move us into really tackling these issues that are so important to the people of our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes. Good morning, residents of Clackamas County. On public safety, the recent resolution to ban fireworks expired on 10 July, but that doesn't mean we can stop being vigilant about fire safety. Plan ahead. Do you know your evacuation route? Do you have a place arranged to go to should a fire require your evacuation? Do you know, and do your neighbors know, a plan for taking care of your livestock? Have you cleared defensible space around your property, especially those of you who lived in rural areas? Be prepared. Go to clackamas.us/wildfires. At that website, you will find just about every piece of information you need to be safe this summer. As for our first responders, Les Poole mentioned that this Saturday at 1 p.m. in Estacada is a first responders appreciation event. I'll be there, and I hope people from the Estacada area are all there to meet their firefighters, police, and medical first responders. On the Portland Water Bureau filtration plant, I will attend the Boring CPO and Cottrell CPO meetings on 5 August to discuss this very controversial issue. If you have a concern or comment, I'd like to hear from you. Please contact me at mshaw@clackamas.us. And on transportation, Commissioner Savas is our great liaison to the Metro Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation. He does a great job for the county. That advisory committee works on transportation projects in the region, and those projects will affect your future. I encourage people to look at the JPACT Regional Transportation 20-Year Plan found on the OregonMetro.gov website. Gary Schmidt already talked about the new Clackamas Connect shuttle. That's a great thing. Look for the new small buses around the town with the Clackamas Connects graphics. And also, more information is at www.clackamas.us H3S/Connects shuttle. And there's a 971-358-0623 number that you can call to arrange front door pickup if you need it. On the boring and dull days, Monday, August 9th is the Boring and Dull Day celebration in Boring, located in the park. The parade starts at 4:45, opening ceremonies at 6 p.m., and a raffle drawing at 7 p.m. You can buy raffle tickets anywhere in the greater Boring area. Come and have a good time, and I guarantee you it will not be dull nor boring. It's a good time. I was there last year. On the Clackamas County Fair and Rodeo, I'm going to remind you every week, Clackamas County, 17 through 21 August at the Canby Fairgrounds. It's going to be the best fair in the nation and the best rodeo. Be there. And on the issue of people in the county who might be having a problem or be underprivileged or whatever the situation might be, no resident of Clackamas County should ever feel alone, nor should they ever feel they have a problem that they can't deal with. On the county staff somewhere is someone who's waiting to take your call to help you on whatever that problem might be. Finally, a word for the week. Government works best when every citizen is aware, involved, and asserting their views, values, and expectations for what they want the future to look like. Your voice needs to be heard. mshaw@clackamas.us is my email. My county cell is 503-568-2741. Call me, email me. And thank you to the people of Clackamas County for making Clackamas County a really nice place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Up next is Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a while since I gave you all an update, and I say all, not only my colleagues here today, but also the residents out there in the county. 4 years ago, the legislature passed HB 2017 that really infused a lot of money and programs into transportation like no other time in the state's history. And this June, the legislature passed HB 3055, another transportation bill that just adds even more funding and programming. And I have been extremely busy since HB 2017 passed because all those programs require representation. We've had more citizen committees than ever before, but to Commissioner Scholl's point about people being involved in their government or being involved in their actions, there's not enough in transportation. And there are and we have, this county has had a history of really doing a lot of outreach and a lot of public involvement. However, transportation funding and transportation decisions are not what people think they are. And, you know, it's evident all the time when I hear people either have an issue, complain, or testify that they don't understand how these decisions are made or why they're made, and where the funding comes from, and why we can't use certain dollars in places, or why we use these dollars for these particular things. And it's, I hate to use the word, I probably overuse it, but it is complex. It's just the nature of this business. But I just want to alert people that if you want to understand what's about to take place here as things roll out, find ways of watching some of these transportation committee meetings or being involved more so, or asking the questions. I really think a transportation forum for this region or this county should be done to kind of alert people as to what's up the pike and get some opinions, because we are going to be part and parcel of some of these significant changes. I too attended the NACO conference, but I did that virtually. And the transportation hearings and a lot of what I attended was early in the morning. And I will just say to a lot of folks that I think the climate actions are responsible. They're federally required. You know, they are part of what we do. There's not a choice in a number of areas as far as the actions we're taking. But I just reckon, go back to when I was young, in my younger years, and I realized that it was technology that was going to be the solution towards reducing emissions, and that is woefully true today. We wouldn't be where we are today with that many cars on the road if we not had done from a engineering, technology standpoint, made the improvements, and we're on the precipice of another huge change, which is electrification of transportation vehicles. Virtually every manufacturer that manufactures cars today has either said or announced dates where they will cease production of internal combustion engines, or that it is in their near horizon. So we will see electrification, and when we do see that, there will still be a need for roads. This is where I'm going. There's people think that we shouldn't build roads. If our population is truly growing, we've got to realize that people will still need to commute, and it will be by electrified vehicles, whether they're buses, whether it's light rail or trains, airplanes, or cars. And one of the meetings I sat in on Saturday morning in Maryland at the NACO conference was about the electrification of planes. It was fascinating discussion. And so there's a lot of things that are coming up the pike, but for those who testify are very passionate about climate change, I would put your faith in the technology. I would not put your faith in the politics or politicians. And I say that as a hit to us in general. I don't think elected officials, I didn't think this 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and were the answer to this. I think it really was technology, and I still believe that today. I think your voice is still important. I would still pressure where you can, but just rest assured, our way out of this ideally is going to be technology. We can find greener ways and technologies, and industries are moving faster than government. That's the other part about this is that when I hear government say, oh, we should do this or we should do that, or businesses should do that, well, they're already doing it. They're ahead of us, and my industry has been ahead of the game for a long time, and I think that's something that's overlooked. So pay attention. I think maybe one of our listening sessions should be an update on transportation changes coming. I want to express that to my colleagues. There's just so much happening. I feel that we would be a disservice if we didn't make people aware of what the changes that are coming about. And for today, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. This morning, I testified before the Oregon Transportation Commission, Commissioner Savas' recommendation, because the Transportation Commission will be implementing House Bill 3055 as what he alluded to. And I testified in support of the amendments, mainly for the 1 penny that will be allocated. It's 1 penny of the gas tax allocated specifically to the I-205 for the construction of the widening of 2 lanes to 3 and seismic upgrades to the Abernathy Bridge. And when that happens, it will be the first bridge over the Willamette River to be earthquake-proof. And my comments were well received, and now the Oregon Transportation Commission has some work ahead of them to do. Testifying was also Oregon City Mayor Linda Smith. I met with the sheriff this week, and we sat and we talked about all the problems. It was a great conversation to reach out to our public safety sheriff, the head, and she has a lot of challenges ahead of her. We talked about the jail, the challenges at the jail. It's very, very old, and it's reached capacity. And we just, brainstormed about all the ills of the world and solved a lot of problems. I wish I could say that and being facetious. I've also reached out to the Fair Board Director at our county fair. 2 legislators, Senator Bill Kennemore and Representative Christine Drazen, has allocated almost $5 million for the construction of a new livestock barn at the county fairgrounds. And we have great interest in making sure that is completed. However, construction costs have gone up, and this board will consider and vote either in favor or not to adding some additional monies to that from our ARPA dollars, our federal ARPA dollars, to finish the construction of the livestock barn. The county fair is used for, as you heard today, wildfire rescue, COVID. We had clinics there for COVID. We had ice storm recipients. So it's really been helpful in completing our mission on emergency management for our government. And they have just welcomed us with open arms. So it is in the best interest of really all of Clackamas County citizens that we have a very large functional building that would be multi-purpose. And so they are sharpening their pencil to figure out how much that's going to cost. Like I said, they had a plan in 2019, but as we know, those plans become quickly outdated. With that in mind, I think we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much, Commissioners.